This is Richard with JR T44, and this is the second in a series of videos intended to show how to set up a model helicopter in the JR T44 transmitter using the TAGS-Mini 3-axis flybarless system. In the last video, we started out by naming the model, assigning the correct type of swash plate, assigning the channels to control the gyro gains for each of the three axes of the TAGS-Mini, setting up the gyro gain so that all three can be controlled by the flight mode switch, and inhibiting all of the other switches in order to prevent unwanted interactions. In this video, we'll describe how to finish tying the gyro gains to the flight mode switch through the Gyro Sense or gyro sensitivity menu, and we will convert the trim tabs for the aileron, elevator, and rudder functions into trim input switches, which will allow us to adjust the gains for each of these axes for each flight mode while in flight if desired. We're going to start by going to the gyro sensitivity menu in the function list. The Gyro Sense menu will allow you to adjust the individual gyro gains for rudder, aileron, and elevator, as well as whether these settings are in normal, rate mode, or stunt, heading hold mode. We're going to start by turning on the transmitter, pressing the L key to enter the function list menu, and scrolling across to the upper right to the words Gyro Sense. We will highlight and click the roll. We're now in the Gyro Sense menu. You see the words triple axis here, and that confirms that we've set up 3 channels for each of the 3 axes to control the gains in the TAGS-Mini. Below that we see rudder switch. Now, the default in this radio is for the rudder switch to control the Gyro Sense menu. Our goal was to tie it to the flight mode switch, so with rudder switch highlighted, we click the roller and now flip the flight mode switch that we had selected in the previous video. Rudder switch changes to flight mode switch, and now the flight mode switch will control the gains for all the gyros based on the values that have been entered on this menu. If we flip the flight mode switch through its 3 positions and look at the position indicator here directly above my finger, we'll see that change from position 0 to 1 to 2 and back to 0 based on switch position. The next thing we're going to do is convert the trim switches for rudder, aileron, and elevator into trim input switches. With the heading hold gyro like the TAGS-Mini, the trim tabs for the 3 primary flight controls are never actually used to trim the helicopter. Proper mechanical setup in the helicopter takes care of this. In any case, the gyro would see any trim changes as an input or command rather than just a trim adjustment. And by the way, thank you to Travis Hanshaw, who taught me how to do this in the 28X about 5 years ago. We're going to begin by pressing the L button to back out to the function list. Now in the function list, we're going to scroll to the right, go right or left, it doesn't matter, until the word System List appears in the lower right corner. We highlight that and click. Now we're going to scroll to the center of the screen where it says Trim Input Switch. Highlight and click the roller. Now, this is a list of the available trim input switches. There's 4 trim levers, so there's 4 switches available. We're going to take the top one, TS0, and make that our rudder trim input switch. Now, if you notice, these are all defaulted to throttle. That's just the way the factory sets them up. So we're going to highlight where it says throttle trim, click the roller, and we're just going to bump the rudder trim. You can see it change from throttle trim to rudder trim there. We move to the right to switch select, and we're going to click the roller. And now we're going to make sure that the trim inputs function in all 3 positions of our flight mode switch. So we're going to scroll over to where it says norm, which is position 0. We're going to click that and highlight it. We're going to do the same for ST1 and the same for ST2. Those are all 3 flight mode positions. Press the L button to back out. And then we're going to repeat the operation for the aileron trim. So highlight under TS1 where it says throttle trim, click. Move the aileron trim lever. Throttle trim is now changed to aileron trim. We go to switch select, and again we select norm for position 0, ST1 for position 1, ST2 for position 2. And now in all 3 flight mode positions, the aileron trim switch can be used to adjust the gyro gain. L to back out. And one final time, we go to TS2 here, where it says throttle trim, click the roller, and bump the elevator trim tab. Throttle trim changes to elevator trim. We scroll over to switch select, and again we highlight normal, ST1, and ST2. Press the L button to back out. Press the L button to back out again. Now in the system list, we're going to return to the function list and then ultimately to the Gyro Sense menu. Scroll down to function list, highlight the word function list and click. And scroll back over to the right now that we're in the function list to the Gyro Sense menu. Highlight and click. Now there are 2 pages in this menu, and we only looked at the first one before. So we're going to scroll down through all of the entries. Now we're on the second page in the Gyro Sense menu. You have 3 columns on the right. First is rudder gain, which is the gear channel. Second is aileron gain, which is auxiliary 2. The third is elevator, which is auxiliary 3, which we set up in the previous video. Directly below rudder gear, where it says trim in, inhibit, we're going to highlight that and click the roller. And now the previously set up TS0, trim input switch 0, we set that up for rudder in the trim input switch menu. We're going to scroll down to it, highlight, and click. We're going to do the same for the aileron channel. Trim input switch is set to inhibit. We're going to set this to TS1, highlight and click. Elevator, we're going to do the same and set it for TIS2. Highlight and click. Now we're going to scroll back up and we're going to talk about this table for a little bit. The table shows the current values for the gains for each axis or channel for each of the 3 flight modes. So if I look at gear, the gear channel, which is the rudder gain, position 1, we have stunt or heading hold mode and 50% gain. For position 2, stunt, 50% gain. Second column represents the values for aileron, the aileron gain, the third for elevator. Now I can change the values on these in one of 2 ways. If I want to do a large percentage change from this menu, I can scroll to the value I want, click on it to highlight it. The value is both highlighted and there's now a border around it, and I can scroll to the value I want. Alternatively, and this is why we just set up the trim input switches, I can push the trim input switch. As I bump the trim tab to the right, the value drops. As I bump it to the left, it increases. If I want to change the value for position 1, which would be idle up 1, I flip into position 1 on my flight mode switch. The position indicator changes to reflect position 1. And now when I bump the trim tab, it changes the value for position 1. This holds true for aileron and elevator as well. So now I can control the values in 2 different ways. And again, if I'm in flight, if I'm in the hover and I go, I need more aileron gain in the hover in position 1 in stunt 1, I can just bump the switch while I'm hovering. Now, if I don't want to be in rate or normal mode, I can simply scroll over to where the N or the S is, highlight them and click, and change it just that easy. And I can do that for any of the gyro gain settings for any of the 3 flight modes we've set up. In the next video, we're going to set up the transmitter so that the dual rates and exponential functions, like the gyro gains, will be controlled through the flight mode switch. Thank you.